Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today for our HR and Hospitality Management panel. On behalf of the members of the Mount St. Vincent University Business and Tourism Department, I would like to begin by thanking you for welcoming us this biannual gathering. As a descendant of the British settlers, I acknowledge and pay respect to the Indigenous people of this land from which we host today's meeting, the new Mi'kmaq people. I live and work on the ancestral, unceded, and unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also pay respect to the knowledge embedded in the Indigenous custodian of this land and to the elders past, present, and future. My name is Caitlin, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this panel. For today's panel, we are going to offer some questions to all of the panelists, but panelists are encouraged to give their input at any time or comment on something another guest has said. If you have something to add, please feel free to contribute at any time as well. I would love to hear from all panelists here today. So if you can all share with us an introduction by telling us about yourselves, your organization, and your work and your position within that organization, that would be wonderful. So to start, I'm going to pick on Chris first. Chris, can you give us a little introduction, please?
Great. Thanks, and it's great to be here, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Chris Hatti. I work at Dalhousie University, and I'm in the Human Resources Department there. My role is the Director of Employee Experience, and I guess what that means is that I oversee a team of HR professionals that works primarily in the areas of labor, relations and employment relations, so dealing with things like performance management issues, as well as our recruitment and retention team for staff positions, learning and development, and organizational health. So in total, our employee experience group is about 14 HR professionals that service the entire Dal campus, which has about 6,000 employees in total, in addition to the roughly 20,000 students.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. I'm going to go to Priya. Priya, can you give us an introduction, please? Thank you. Sorry, you're on mute, Priya.
Thank you. It happens often with virtual meetings, but thank you so much for having me. First of all, I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to today's session. Just a little bit about myself. I've been in HR for about 10 plus years. I'm actually located in Toronto, Ontario. I, did my education at Dalhousie University, Chris, followed by my master's at St. Mary's with my MBA. And since then, my career has been in human resources. So my background consists of employee relations, organizational development, workforce planning with global organizations, Nestle Canada, PepsiCo Canada, American Express, Taro Pharmaceuticals, and now most currently with Southern Glazer's Wine and Spirits. You may not know, or some of you may know that Southern Glazer's is one of the world's preeminent distributors of beverage alcohol. It has operations in 44 US states and the District of Columbia, Canada, and the Caribbean. In my role at Southern Glazer's, I am the HR business partner for all of Canada control regions. So that's spanning all of our 10 provinces and our territories. So scope of responsibility is considerably high with regards to all the compliance requirements as it relates to alcohol distribution and cannabis. But other than that, my day-to-day is the employee relations, organizational effectiveness, development, the workforce planning. Unfortunately, some difficult decisions sometimes, but you know what? This is the path we chose. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your introduction. And Nick, please, would you mind giving us an introduction of yourself?
Yes, Caitlin, do you mind just confirming my audio is okay? I just changed my mic at the last second.
No, it sounds great.
Good. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Nick Bainen. I am the CEO of CPHR Nova Scotia. It's the HR Association for the province. A little bit of background about me. So I've always been an HR professional. I've worked in retail, marketing companies, IT companies, and worked my way up as many do. And eventually my HR positions ended up, I've always been interested in being a generalist and taking on as much and being as wide as possible. I never did the whole go 8 miles deep into the benefit space or recruitment. So I've always been a bit of a generalist. And once I hit director level, I found myself wanting to go beyond even HR. So my last position was corporate services director. So I was responsible for everything in this one particular company. So I did marketing, communications, IT, facilities, HR, payroll, a whole bunch of different functions, which lend themselves well to me taking on this position here as CEO. So now I'm almost like a small business owner. That in my position, I'm doing everything, IT, facilities. And the reason I landed here in CPHR Nova Scotia is because in my previous roles, I always spent a lot of my time in evenings and weekends contributing back to the community. You know, you find yourself as you develop your career, you end up wanting to, you know, in your more mature years, I'm almost at 20 years in HR, you end up wanting to give back. And so I spent a lot of time in the community space, HR community. And this role opened up and it was an opportunity to do what I loved in the evenings and weekends, but have it as my full-time job and do it. And get paid to do it, which is pretty cool. So, so we are the association for the province, and we offer the designation, which is a stamp that you are a vetted professional. It definitely looks fantastic on your resume to say I'm a chartered member of HR, and that's one of the main things we do, amongst others. We do political clout stuff. Government reaches out to us, and we connect them with our members to influence different legislative pieces. We do a lot of training, networking, you name it. Lots. I'm sure I'll have other opportunities to discuss some of the services that we offer.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, we do have another panelist who is not here yet. She's running late. So if she does show up, I will ask her to give a little introduction as well. But until then, I'm going to ask you all some questions. So feel free to contribute at any time, like I mentioned before, and comment on anything else that sounds interesting. So my first question, maybe I'll pick on Nick since I've got you with your mic off. I'm sorry, with your mute off. So my first question is, how has your education and experience led you to your current position?
Yeah, great question. So I got my degree in HR at University of Toronto. I was fortunate in that I was holding down a part-time job while I was in school, and there was a need in HR before I even graduated. So about 3 months before I graduated, I had a position lined up, and I was thrown into a fire. I had no idea, I didn't have any HR experience, and I was thrown into a location, the only location in Ontario that was under a heavy union drive. And all I had was an academic experience and no real professional experience. And they had a previous location under a drive, and they came flying in with corporate. And so this was in Windsor, Ontario, this particular location, and our headquarters was in Toronto. Everyone drove over, and all the staff are like, "Why is everyone flying in here? What's going on? Oh my God, it is a disaster. We should join the union," and it backfired. So then along I came. I just graduated. I get put into a store in Toronto, and they're under a union drive, and the headquarters was like, "Well, last time we rushed in and it was a disaster. We lost." Like they preferred, I shouldn't say win or lose. The unions can be good, they can be bad. I'm neutral on that, but their position was they were against unions. So they did send me in there with a mission to make sure that the staff felt that they didn't need third-party representation. And so they send in this rookie. They backed off because they learned from their previous mistake, and then that just kickstarted my whole career. I had an unbelievable start. It gave me tons of experience, and it set me up to win some awards very early on in my career, which was fantastic. And as I mentioned in my intro, I've always been interested in giving back to the community, which led me to this position here. Being the CEO of CPHR Nova Scotia really gives me a fantastic opportunity to, at a full time, like in my daytime, to give back to the community, to make sure that HR professionals across the province are benefiting from our many different services, between us trying to connect them with other professionals in the industry, and the rest is history.
Wonderful. You said at the beginning that you had a position lined up 3 months before you graduated. How did you manage that? Was that just really great networking skills, or were you really working hard to apply for positions before you graduated?
Yeah, for sure. Networking is a big piece of it. You know, it was within the same organization. So I was a part-time employee. I had built up rapport. So everyone, everyone had a good opinion of me. So they thought, okay, Nick's a good guy. He's about to graduate. We've got an opportunity. Why don't we go with a known? I mean, there's definitely a takeaway from this story for sure is the power of networking, the power of familiarity. That position that was offered to me was probably not posted on the internet. Any outsiders didn't have the opportunity to get that position, and that was all through the power of networking and me being, I think another lesson in there too is any position you have, whether it's part of your career or not, you're building your own brand, right? So I had built up a decent brand such that I was able to, before I even graduated, have a position lined up, which, those miracles don't always happen. So.
Hard work, I guess, more so than miracles, but yeah, wonderful. Thank you for your answer. And Chris, I'm going to go to you next. How has your education and experience led you to your current event? Oh, I'm sorry, your current position.
Feels like an event every day.
But, a nice event.
Yeah, so I think, my education is pretty, I think, standard for what you'd expect for someone who kind of goes into human resources, particularly kind of a labor relations focus. So I did my undergraduate at St. Mary's in human resources and industrial relations. And from there went to Queen's where I did my master's of industrial relations. So I think one tip is, if you are really interested in kind of moving forward in HR, I think an advanced degree beyond undergrad is a great way to really jumpstart your career. The program at Queen's was one of the few kind of that specializes in sort of labor relations training. And, it's a program where, a number of major kind of national employers are, attracting people right out of that program. So I think one piece of advice would be that definitely look at other education, whether it's right after your undergrad or something that you do as more of a lifelong learning model. So from there, things get a little less kind of standard in terms of, my career path once I kind of got into the workforce, and kind of very similar to Nick. I think the main kind of lessons would be, the benefit of, finding opportunities that might not be just sitting out in front of you, taking chances, and even some risks in terms of your career. So I, quite not long after I graduated, I had the opportunity to take a parental leave position at Mount St. Vincent, actually, and I worked at the Mount first in a faculty relations role, and it was a kind of similar to this opportunity to jump in with 2 feet. They needed someone to sort of fill a position, but it turned out that 12-month period aligned with when 2 collective agreements were being negotiated, and there were some major kind of organizational structural changes happening in the academic side at the Mount. So kind of very quickly was able to get some of that experience, directly at the bargaining table, which really led to me kind of, I think, being able to specialize in the university sector, which is a really great place to work, particularly in Nova Scotia, where we have 13 post-secondary institutions. So from that parental leave, I was able to stick around at the Mount in an HR manager role and worked there for about 5 years. And then from there went to NASCAD, where I was the director of human resources at NASCAD for a period of time, which again helped sort of build experience, kind of get out of that specialization in labor relations and build more of a HR generalist practitioner background. And that's kind of what led me to my role now at Dow. So I think one thing I would stress with that, and Nick talked a bit about sort of the generalist versus specialist, both in terms of, you have to kind of make that decision early in your HR career. Do I want to specialize in benefits or labor relations or recruitment, or do I want to be more of a generalist? I think it's similar in terms of the sector where, sometimes, having a background in, university settings or more private sector or hospitals or public service, I think those are some other things we'll probably talk about later on, but some of those kind of early decisions that'll help shape a career path going forward.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Priya, do you have information on how your education experience has led you to your position that you can share with us and the students?
Yeah, absolutely. Coming, when you're a new grad or a new undergraduate student, you're kind of like, what do I do with my life? Coming into it, I did do a bachelor's of science. I had no intention of coming into the HR field, to be very honest, but things change as you evolve as an individual. And, I did my undergrad with all intention of doing pre-med, getting into med school and everything else. But, things very quickly changed when I started exploring other opportunities. Eventually, I decided to do my MBA, and I focused more so on the HR marketing aspect of things. So I honed in the skill set that I wanted to focus in the most, because my undergrad was in psychology, mostly focused, where it still had a people connection. So doing the MBA in HR and marketing allowed me to continue that people connection. But one thing that I did learn from my undergrad versus my MBA or my master's is the fact that it's very important for you to get known, build your networks, like Nick mentioned. Networks go a significant way in terms of shaping your career, shaping you as an individual, and building your confidence in the stream of work that you want to do. So during my master's, I was actually a part of the graduate studies program, in the sense that I was a VP of operations, I was a VP of external affairs. I took part in organizing the largest leadership forums at St. Mary's University, which really gave me a platform to be confident in my learnings. My partnerships, who I was engaging with, which kind of kickstarted the fact that, it's never too early to start conversations. And those conversations being with your career advisors, those conversations being with your professors, make yourself known, right? If they don't know you, they don't know your interests in what fields you want to project yourself in, or where they may feel that, hey, let's step in and guide this individual because they're really showing an interest in this area of, expertise or whatnot. And essentially that allowed me to kind of target specific organizations that I wanted to work for. Never thought I'd work for PepsiCo Canada corporate, head office in Toronto as my first career job. And it truly was because I manifested it. And I did the right things at the right time. I built the right networks at the right time, and kind of pushed myself forward to take those challenges, whether I was comfortable or not. So I really pushed myself out of my comfort zone. So it's all about, knowing what you want and manifesting and kind of going for it. Because at the end of the day, you are here to shape your own career. No one else is going to do it for you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's also some great advice to hear. I know at least I can speak for myself and a lot of the other students who are graduating soon. It's nice to get that head start, like you're saying, and also what Nick was saying. Okay, so our next question is, can you tell us about the types of jobs that might be available for students considering a career with your company or maybe something else in the HR realm? And I'll start with you, Priya.
Okay. So based on my experience, I always say to any new grads, I've got lots of friends, I've got lots of cousins, lots of friends that, their sisters or brothers may be going through their decision making right now. But I always say, think about where you want to be, and it's okay to start at the baseline, at the beginning, because truly the one piece of advice I would give to anyone is learn the business that you want to get into before you start getting aggressive with your career. And that's just my personal thought point. I started off as a coordinator in benefits and disability management, and truly it was an eye-opening experience for me. I learned a lot about the organization, the do's, the don'ts, and pretty much the basics that allowed me to kind of propel myself forward. So as a new grad, I would highly recommend, if you are interested in HR, start off at the level of, the HR coordinator, the HR specialist. If you have a co-op opportunity, it's a great way to make a network. I know at the end of the day, when you do graduate from undergrad, you're thinking, I need to make some money now because I've got, loans that I need to pay off. But sometimes doing that little bit of volunteer work or doing that little bit of co-op work it's your foot in the door, to be very honest. And people do appreciate it. They see the eagerness. We always say, undergrads or new grads are very eager to get into work, but sometimes we have a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I'll speak for myself as well. We think we're better than others out there, but at the end of the day, we kind of need to level up and say, what is my true experience in, and what can I do, and where can I contribute? So it's very important to have self-awareness in what you want to do and how you want to achieve those goals. But I always say aim for the stars, because you're going to get there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely coordinator, specialist. It totally depends on your experience, any exposure that you've gotten. But I would say as a stepping stone, step off in the sense that you're going in to learn about the business. It's not about the position title. It's truly learn the business, and the position title will come to you.
Wonderful. That's something that has been echoed a lot during these panels that we've had this week. It's don't be afraid to start at the bottom and learn everything.
Absolutely.
And then make those moves to move yourself up, because they're great stepping stones. So
yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you for
you'll take those calculated risks when the time comes, like I did. I took risks. I left full-time employment for contract employment because I wanted that risk. And to be very honest, I think Nick and Chris pinpointed on this. At the end of the day, you go through your education, you need to know, you need to determine, do you want to be a specialist? Do you want to be a generalist? Do you want to be a holistic HR professional? Or do you want to be someone that is siloed into a certain stream, whether it's benefits, disability, employee relations, whatever that is? And I wanted to be a holistic HR partner, so I took calculated risks.
Very good, thank you. And Chris, I'll go to you next. Can you tell us about some types of jobs that might be available for students considering a career at perhaps Dalhousie in the HR department?
Sure, and to kind of echo what Priya was just saying around, I think I really enjoy working in universities, not just at Dal, but the other universities I worked in too. And I kind of made that conscious decision that that's a sector that I really wanted to be in. So to kind of echo what was just said, I think one of the things about working in HR is it's so incredibly important that your personal values align with the values of the organization that you're working for, because at the end of the day, so much of your work is as a representative for the organization, representing the decisions that are made by leadership, the culture of the organization, and trying to put that forward. So if you don't have that alignment, it makes the work that much harder to do. I mean, I would highly recommend anyone who sort of enjoys being in a university atmosphere to consider work, afterwards sort of at a university. I know when I worked at the Mount, every office you go to, you'll find an employee who is most likely a graduate of the Mount as well, because of the strong kind of culture and environment that's there that kind of keeps people wanting to stick around. And it's the same at Dal as well. And we have the benefit at Dal as being, much bigger than some of the other universities and have a track record of being, a leading employer in Nova Scotia and Canada. So we've been recognized a number of times as a top 100 employer, both in Canada and Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, and have been, recognized as a top employer by other organizations as well. So I think the great thing about Dal is it really is almost like a small village with 6,000 employees doing every potential job you can imagine, from gardening, custodial work, skilled trades, administrative positions, research support, and of course HR, finance, facilities, all those sort of support functions as well. So again, going back, it might not be that you're going to enter in your perfect job, but I think if it's a sector that you're interested in working, or an employer that you find really intriguing, getting your foot in the door and finding the opportunity to get in and get some experience and build a sort of reputation for yourself is a great way to get on board. If you are interested in working at Dal, you can visit our website at dal.ca and find our job board there, and would encourage also anyone not to hesitate to reach out to people that you might have an interest in meeting. One of the things that I think is the best piece of advice you can give in terms of networking is, I think there's always a hesitation or an anxiety around reaching out to someone you don't know, particularly if that's someone who you imagine is in a busy or important role. At the end of the day, 99% of people really enjoy the opportunity to pass on knowledge, meet new people, meet with people who are starting out. So you should really, allow some of that anxiety to the side and, take a chance on reaching out to someone who you'd like to meet, because most likely they're really interested in meeting you too.
Wonderful, thank you. And yes, I really like your comment about how Dalhousie is a small village, because I did my first undergrad at Dalhousie, and it really is. And I think those big universities have their benefit, as well as having those small pockets all throughout the university that you can really create your own small kind of bubble with, and that has the same small university feel, but just in their own sections.
Yeah, and that's sort of on that. A lot of our faculties, have their own kind of administrative support as well. So there's lots of interesting opportunities. I always tell people in describing Dal, when you think about, the 27,000 people that make up our community, if Dal was a town or village in Nova Scotia, it would be probably the third largest community in the province.
Yeah, that's not wrong. Half the population at Halifax seems to be a university student at the very least. And a good amount of those Dalhousie, obviously, with how large it is. Thank you very much. And Nick, what about yourself? Are there any positions that you would suggest students take, or any positions that within your organization that you would suggest students apply for just to start off, or just to get that experience that's essential?
Sure, yeah, and I think I have to take a different approach because of who we are. But first, I want to piggyback something Chris said, and I'm a strong proponent of what he was saying. That connecting with people, the cold calling of other other businesses and business leaders, it's a very scary thing to do, and there's a right way and a wrong way. Some people will call, and the wrong way is trying to seek that employment, right? Trying to sell yourself, and that's not going to go well. The key to what Chris is saying, the success in doing that, and I've done this myself, is connecting from an exploratory perspective, right? So let's say Chris was hiring. The wrong thing for me to do would be call Chris and say, hey, can we talk about that job that you posted? I think I'd be really good at it. That's not going to go well. But if I said, hey, Chris, I see you have a job posting. I'm really interested in learning more about Dal and what they do. It seems like you're doing really cool things there. Would you mind just connecting with me? We can talk about your business and your goals, and and I get Chris to talk, and Chris shares all the wonderful things. Everyone loves to talk about how great their employer is, and because we're proud of where we work, and so we're happy to talk about that. And it's not talking about you, it's us talking about the position we have, the workplace we have. That opens up a great dialogue, which can then find your resume sneaking up to the top, accidentally, not intentionally, not directly. So sorry, Caitlin, to get back to the question, I just wanted to jump on that because Chris is spot on with that. So I have to take a bit of a different angle. We only have we're a non-for-profit. The vast majority of our output is coming from volunteers. So for sure, you can volunteer, and that will open up doors, like Priya said. Stick your neck out, do some volunteer opportunities that can help you network. It can, anytime you're rolling up your sleeves and you're working side by side with someone, you're going to make a very strong connection. So we have lots of volunteer opportunities, but I think this is probably the best opportunity to plug the partnership that CPHR Nova Scotia and MSVU have, which can help you get that first position. So here's the partnership. This is, I'll try and do a quick snapshot of it. If you're graduating with the BBA degree, majoring in strategic human resources management, you are fast-tracked through our designation process. I won't get through all the nitty-gritty, but bottom line is, if you're graduating with that and you have a good GPA, you are fast-tracked. You can skip 9 courses, skip the national knowledge exam, and then the only thing you need to do to complete the designation is just to nail down 3 years of professional experience. Okay, so as soon as you graduate, you can let us know. We'll make sure, we'll look at your transcript and everything, and then you are considered a CPHR candidate. And that candidate status, if you've got 2 similar resumes and one's a CPHR candidate, which is vetted by a nationally approved HR association, versus one that isn't, that's going to definitely give you a bit of an edge. And you're halfway through, and then, as I said, there's the experience component. So besides the designation, as a member, if you joined our association, you get networking opportunities, you get lots of training opportunities. We're always informing our members of trends in the HR space, and we represent you from a government perspective with the political clout. So there's a lot to help get an edge on other competitors with A, the designation, but B, also the membership as well. And as I said, the volunteer. If you volunteered with us, chances are you might be volunteering next to the VP of HR of Emira. And how often do you get the opportunity to work side by side with someone with that prestigious position? For sure, that's going to benefit your career.
Wonderful. And how did that partnership come about, out of curiosity? Is that something that has been in place for a while, or?
I think it's been 2 years. So I connected with Dr. Memberket, and he and I figured out whether it makes sense for both organizations. Once we determined it was, which was a quick decision on both of our parts. MSVU has a reputable program, so it was a no-brainer for us. And Dr. Memberket saw that CPHR Nova Scotia would bring a heightened value to that program. And then he injected Nick into your Nick, MSVU's Nick, not me. And the two of us just pounded it out and made sure that we vetted out the program and made sure that it was of significant coverage. We have to find that it covers 80% of our competency, and you blew that out of the water. So it was a quick win, and then we rolled it out about 2 years ago.
Wonderful. I think Nick is actually here right now attending with his class. So that's
I suspected he was, he's probably hollering, trying to cheer on people to get the designation. He's a big believer in it. So we
yes, if only we allowed mic and video in the panels, we would probably hear it all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that. I'm going to keep you around for our next question, which is, what do you see as the key HR management skills needed to manage an organization or a company today? So for yourself, obviously you're with a good organization. So on that front, what are some of those key skills?
Yes, I see Nick's commenting now. Let's go CPHR. Thanks, Nick. Love the support. So one of the other things that CPHR Nova Scotia does, we do a lot of white papers, and we do partner on surveys. So we did run a survey asking this exact question, and it ran through 180 different countries. We only interviewed leaders in the HR world and then CEOs. And there was three main ones that came back, three key takeaways from that survey. And I'm just going to touch one because I suspect if I do all three, then we're going to have overlap between the three panelists. So I'll just touch one, and then I'm sure Chris and Priya will have some fantastic ones to add as well. So the one that I'm going to cover is digitization. Digitization is huge for HR. It's a trending thing, and the expectation from HR leaders that it's not going to go away. Some of the more leading edge companies are getting into chatbots, right? So if you have a large workforce, Chris has a very large workforce, like that'd be a prime example where, you might have a staff member that's asked the same question like once a week. Every time you hire someone, they're filling a benefits form and they ask, what is a revocable beneficiary? And your benefits person's like answering that question every single time. Well, how long does it take for that benefits employee to get back to that person? Maybe it's an email, right? It takes 2-3 days. Why not have a chatbot where your staff can go on and say, what's a revocable beneficiary? And the chatbot has the answer because it's learned, it's got that artificial intelligence, and it can answer instantly. And you would think staff wouldn't like this because like who wants to talk to robots? But the benefits outweigh the cons, right? Like, yeah, you're talking to a robot, but at least you got an instant response. So staff are very open to it. And the other thing that, the other piece of digitization that I want to touch on is HR departments are sitting on mounds and mounds of data. And our skill sets, the stereotypical HR professional, our skill sets don't usually leverage them to be great analysts of data. And so if that's a skill set you can develop, and there are ones out there, don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic HR analysts out there, but most of us get into it because we like people, and we want to talk, we want to be business partners, we want to be strategists. There's no better way to impact your HR department by being that person that knows how to do pivot tables and HLOOKUPs and get into Excel and tell a story. You've got all this data, here's our talent management, right? So we've got X amount of staff with this skill set or this certification. Why don't we do something about it, right? And someone that can analyze the data can help you pivot on a dime and figure out, the way forward. So I would say one of the greatest skills that are going to be needed in the future is digitization.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And we'll go to Chris. What are some of the skills that are needed in your field?
I definitely agree with sort of the data point and the ability to use data to make those informed decisions. But I think from my experience, I think the thing that really sets people up for success in terms of career growth and kind of building credibility in organization really comes down to building a skill where you're not speaking HR language, but able to speak business language. So really that kind of mindset where you're able to kind of link HR strategy with business strategy. So much of our work is the people side and the business partner side, being a consultant to leaders across an organization. And if you can go in and deal with an HR issue, not from the lens of, this is just the HR police model, but this is sort of our business interest. This is how we, solve this problem through the lens of what our kind of strategic priorities are as an organization. Those are the things that I've seen, really help people kind of grow in their HR career and gain that credibility in an organization. So for me, I think that's, the main kind of core competency that I would recommend people work on is really communication and learning how to develop a business acumen that informs their HR kind of practice. I think the other thing that I would highlight, just as a more kind of practical thing is everyone's probably heard, and I'm sure you've all talked about this in your classes, especially if you're in Nick's class, is sort of the increased focus on recruitment right now. And it's something that, we're seeing in our organization. It's, the conversations I'm having are largely being informed by the fact that we're in a seller's market in the labor market where positions are becoming harder to fill. How we recruit needs to be more, I think, strategic, and then candidates are demanding more in terms of compensation and other factors when they're being made an offer. So I think that's a skill that right now is going to be a great way to kind of get your foot in the door, because I think a lot of organizations are going to be resourcing up on the recruitment side of things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Priya, do you have anything to add to that? Do you have any key skills needed that you would suggest to focus on for students?
Sorry, on mute again. I said I would definitely have to echo what Nick and Chris said. Digitization, absolutely. Data mining. We may not think about using data as much as we would do, in a typical analytical field, finance field, or et cetera. But at the end of the day, a lot of our business decisions these days are made based off of data, recruitment, attrition rates, whatever that may be, and how it impacts your business. Strategic mindset, right? We're at the table with various other leaders in the organization, and we are helping them build the foundation of any business. So our people are our foundation, and it's important to understand everything holistically. Just, two soft skills that I've really, vocalized in terms of understanding is communication skills. It doesn't only go with the way of how you communicate, but it's very important to understand that listening is very important when it comes to communication. In our profession as HR, we're often listening to people and trying to problem solve. So those are two kind of key things that go hand in hand. And the other is time management. Our schedules are never the same every day. People are calling us. We need to be able to deal with adversity very quickly. We need to be able to multitask. No day is the same in human resources. And it may not be the same in other fields of study or profession either, but I can tell you that every problem is different in its own way, shape, or form. But it's exciting. It makes your everyday exciting. It's not redundant. But that's pretty much it. So what Chris and Nick said, digitization, data mining, and then the soft skills such as time management and communication as some of the pure areas of ability that I think go a long way.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's something that's been echoed a lot just during the career week as well, as if you are under the business administration kind of umbrella, that a lot of the things that you do are change every day. And I think that's really exciting. And I think why a lot of us are here. So that's great to hear. Okay, I'm going to pick on you again, Priya, for our next question, which is how can university students best prepare themselves for success in today's business world if they want to pursue an HR management role?
Absolutely. I would, I go back and echo again, Chris and Nick, it's all about building networks and how you're building them. So again, yes, we're all eager. We really want to get that first break, but it's not about, hey, I see a job posting available. Can I have the job? It's about getting to know them, learning about their business, showing a deep interest, because it does go a long way. Your name does go up to the top of the pile, perhaps, or to a certain degree to say, hey, you know what, maybe not for my business, but I've got a colleague in this, in this company, I think you'd be a great fit for that organization. So it's all about how you communicate. It's that it goes back to the elevator pitch. Self-awareness, right? Knowing what you want, but also being agile as well, right? Because sometimes we do have to mold ourselves into a situation where, you know what, tomorrow I'll be in a better shape to make a situation or kind of target a specific role that I want to do. But for the time being, let's get my foot in the door, be open-minded, right? And to be very honest, I know, getting your first break is kind of the target. Everyone's looking for that. It's okay. It does take time sometimes. Don't beat yourself up, right? It takes time, but remember that good things come to those who wait. So be eager, be passionate about what you want to do. have a sense of what direction you want to go in, but it's okay if it takes a month, if it takes 2 months. Take that time to develop your skill set, right? It's not always about the career. You're going to work the rest of your life, but at the end of the day, take the time to learn about yourself, take the time to learn about what you want to do, what direction you want to go in, and kind of review the scope of the different dimensions of what HR holds. Do you want to be a holistic HR partner? Do you want to specialize in something? If you want to specialize in something, maybe take an extra course in organizational development or benefits administration or whatever that may be. But all I can say is, be confident in yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Your break will come, and it will come very soon, and you'll be, you're going to work hard for it. You're going to work hard your whole life.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Nick, I'll go to you next. How can university students prepare themselves for success in today's business world if they want to pursue an HR or management position?
Sorry, there we go. So I'll approach it from a perspective of you haven't had your first opportunity yet. So, if I put myself in your shoes, you're about to graduate and you're starting to look at job postings, and the postings say 1 to 2 years experience. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't have any. I worked part-time at the Gap, at the shopping mall. I don't have any experience. So I'll approach it from filling that gap. So first off, I'll tell you, I'm going to stereotype a bit. Men and women stereotypically handle this very differently. A male it's not uncommon for a male to see, oh, they need 10 years of experience. I have none, so I'm totally qualified. I'm going for it. Females are often a bit more pragmatic and think, well, I shouldn't apply for it. I'm here to basically tell you that you are qualified with so many of those positions, right? So if they say 1 to 2 years and you haven't had an official HR job yet, there's 2 things that you can do. Number one, you find skills that you've developed. Let's say you're working part-time at the Gap. What skills are transferable? What is HR about? It's about dealing with people. Selling clothes at the Gap, it's dealing with people. So you find those transferable things and you connect the dots. So you are able to articulate, I've got 1 to 2 years of experience. The other thing to go a bit further is to, again, volunteer. So if you're at the Gap and they're asking who wants to join the health and safety committee, your hand should be going up. That is a direct translation to the HR world, right? You're starting to do HR stuff, even though you're not holding down an HR position. So it's asking, and you can ask for your boss for stretch opportunities. I'm a Gap salesperson. Hey, boss, is there an opportunity I could get maybe involved in some of the recruitment? Like, can I help? Maybe can I sit in some phone interviews? Can I help draft the questions for the phone interviews? Stretching yourself a little bit to get more involved and start to build up that, hey, I do have experience. I haven't had an HR job, but I do have HR experience. That's before, and I want to touch on once you start. I think one of the key things that businesses need, leaders need specifically, is for you to play the role of almost like an in-house counsel. I don't mean legal counsel, I mean like psychologist counsel. HR professionals are the only ones that can put a CEO in their place, right? A CEO or a top leader, they're under a lot of stress and sometimes they lash out. They are usually results focused and less people focused, right? So if there's a crunch deadline and they're going to miss a deadline, they might rip someone's head off and then walk away from that meeting and be like, that was a great meeting. We're going to get this done. We're going to hit our targets. And they just destroyed someone. The head of IT, the head of marketing, they can't go to that leader and say, the way you spoke to that person is offside. They will also get their heads ripped off. But HR, I think early in your career, if you can establish that you can be that safe place to say, hey, you're offside, I'm going to give you a little feedback. If you can establish that, I do find that will help escalate your career very, very quickly early on.
Thank you. Actually, something that I was discussing the other day in our fireside chat was the requirement where a lot of entry positions will say like 2 years of experience required or something like that. And one thing that we discussed was, as you were saying, you can have those experiences in different ways, and don't let that dissuade you from applying for a position, because what that shows is that you have like a lot of drive and initiative and wanting to learn and experience more. So it's nice to hear that reflected with what you said. So thank you. And Chris, I will go to you next. Do you have any like some thoughts on how students can best prepare themselves for success?
Yeah, I'll take the crotchety old man approach to answering the question, which is, I think all that advice is great in terms of things you can do to kind of get your foot in the door. But, to be successful when you're starting off, I think, there's a few things you really need to keep in mind to kind of keep yourself grounded. And one is, everything in life has to be earned. You need to recognize that you need to prove yourself. You need to earn sort of that next promotion. Nothing's going to be handed to you, and you're not entitled to something that you haven't demonstrated that you've earned yet in the workplace. I think you need to really crave feedback in a way that's meaningful, and recognize that getting harsh feedback or getting sort of real kind of constructive feedback is something that's going to only make you better. And so being someone who is perceived as someone who can take that feedback and change and grow and have an open mind is so critical early in your career. You need to be willing to work hard and again prove yourself. And then sort of the last thing is recognizing that how you approach your work is just as important as the technical quality of the work that you do. It's one thing to be really technically sound and to do a good job and to produce good results, but you're going to also be judged by how you build relationships with your colleagues and the people around you, how you contribute to the overall atmosphere in the organization, how you're able to engage in conversations in a way that doesn't come off as telling the CEO off instead of actually giving them meaningful advice, to use Nick's example. So all those soft skills and sort of the approach that you take to your work, it's actually something when we developed the competency model at the Mount in the HR department, we put a lot of focus on that. It's not just what you do, but it's how you do it as well. And I'd recommend taking a look at that or connecting with anyone in HR if you're interested in that sort of perspective on things.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And as always, I'll stick with you for my next question as well. What do you like about your work and what do you dislike? Is there anything that you find challenging in particular about your position?
Yeah, so I mean, what I really like about the work is how interesting and varied and even sometimes absurd the work is. I always tell people what I love about HR is sort of being able to find kind of the humor in the human condition. You get to see things and experience situations that you might not have the opportunity to in other fields. So you have to really just enjoy people and enjoy what makes them tick in order to kind of be able to deal particularly on that employee relations side of things. The thing I also really, really like about the work is, there's very few jobs where you get to learn, so much about all different aspects of an organization. When you're helping leaders recruit or do workforce planning or organizational structure reviews, you really need to get to know those things. Like I never thought I would, know anything about, commercialization of faculty members' research, but, working with our commercialization department on some structural work, you have to get in there and really know the business. So you really get to see everything, learn a bit about everything. If you're someone who's naturally sort of curious, it's a great way, great field to work in. So, I really love that aspect of it. And I think working in a university setting only, adds some of those kind of benefits of the job. I think the challenges are the things that you would expect. Sometimes you have to be the type of person who's able to manage conflict and recognize that conflict, is human nature and part of your life. You need to be someone who's able to, regulate sort of the emotional labor of the work and recognize that, you have to be kind of cognizant of your own well-being. If you have a day where there's like 3 or 4 really difficult conversations, that's going to impact, how you, are feeling the rest of the day or the next day. So, those are the challenges of the position. I think I crave the unpredictability of it. If you're not someone who can manage unpredictability in your life, is probably, HR is probably not the right field.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Is there anything that you find especially challenging? I know, I suppose I didn't realize how much there was within HR management because I'm not an HR student, but it's really eye-opening to see how wide your position really has in terms of how many kind of pots you kind of have your hand in, and you have to learn everything. Is that something that you find challenging, or kind of a challenging good way, like you want to learn everything?
Yeah, exactly. There's always growth opportunities and new things to learn. I'm working on a project now where I've had to learn a little bit of pivot tables, which before I didn't know. So, I think those are some of the challenges. Is it does stretch you, and there's so much difference between, again, labor relations bargaining versus payroll administration. So kind of being the type of person who can know enough, but also know what you don't know, and know where you need to kind of build a team that has diverse skills and diverse perspectives is, I think, a really important challenge for any HR leader. You can't build a team where there's only kind of one perspective, where everyone kind of feels like different versions of the same thing. Building diverse teams is critical, but then managing diverse teams requires a different level of sort of managerial insight as well.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And I will go to Nick. What do you find most appealing about your work, and what do you dislike the most about your work?
I'm going to give you two answers. So for my job, I love the community piece, which you probably picked up on some of my other answers. I dislike the size of our team. I'm used to working in very large organizations. This is very small for me. But I'll give you a bonus answer, because I don't think those are super insightful for your audience, but I'll give you an HR answer. So what I love about the HR work. So what do I love? I think I worked in my first few positions, I worked in places where I had a passion for what they were doing. And so I didn't know what I loved about HR, because it was clouded by, wow, I'm working for really cool companies selling really cool services and products. So like Air Miles, I used to work at Air Miles. I was an Air Miles junkie, so it was awesome. I loved it, but it clouded my vision of seeing what I loved about HR. I thought it was, I love people, and the business and economics and all of that. But then all it took was for me to work in a place where I didn't have a passion for the product. So I worked in insurance. And insurance is not exciting. No one gets excited about insurance. And that's when I realized what I actually love is creating a fantastic workplace that creates fantastic jobs. So I found pride and enjoyment in creating great jobs for the community I lived in. That's where I found my source of pride and my love for the HR field. What I dislike, and this is something that you don't feel right away in your career, but you start to feel as you progress, HR can be very lonely. And I think that's something I struggle with. In my early days, I was a junior level, so I had lots of peers that I could connect with, and we could go have drinks with. And then as you progress, all of a sudden you're not getting invited out for drinks because you are the police officer within the organization, and everyone's I don't want to call them dirty secrets, but a lot of confidential stuff. So you also don't want to be in a situation where you're drinking and you get slippery lips, right? Like you have way too much knowledge. And so there's times where whether you're a fun, casual person or not, you're not always invited to those after parties. You might go to the Christmas party and you might end up leaving early because things are getting carried away, and that's going to cause you work the next day. So it can get a bit lonely within your own organization, especially as you progress.
Wonderful, thank you. I would never have considered thinking about that kind of aspect of your work, but it's interesting to get that background on how things work and how it affects your life outside of your position within your company. So thank you. And Priya, what do you like or dislike about your position?
So I would say right now, well, actually, no, in general, I would say, it seems so cliche where people say, oh, I like the people aspect of it, but I truly do like the people aspect of it. The last couple of years have really allowed me to make those connections, have really allowed me to connect. What I often get in terms of feedback is the fact that, Priya, when it comes to HR, you do your business, but you have the ability to connect with people and understand their perspective and provide them with the guidance that they need to protect the business, to manage the business, as well as give them the right direction or whatever that may be. So what I do appreciate is truly the people aspect of things. I am a people person. And it truly, like, you know, I take people's problems and I kind of put myself in a situation to say, you know, what would I do or how would I feel, to try to relate back and kind of give them the right guidance that they need. In terms of what do I not like about the situation, about HR in general, I find that, you know, it's the misconception is that, you know, HR is easy. HR, you know, at times is challenging. As Chris has mentioned, there's various aspects. You need to wear multiple hats. You may be a person that can deal really good with employee relations as you start growing an organization, but when it comes to having to manage payroll or benefits, there's different nuances. You need to know different compliance requirements. HR is a lot of work at times, but it's not something to get scared of. Every job is a lot of work, but, you know, without HR, a business can't operate, to be very honest. So you are an essential component to a business. So what I do dislike is the fact that the misconception that, you know, HR is just fluffy. HR is not fluffy. It's a lot of work. A lot of things go through us in order for a business to operate, to run effectively, appropriately, to make sure that we are in compliance. I've worked in pharmaceuticals, 4 years working with the FDA and Health Canada, very, very heavily, you know, compliance oriented. Right now I work for alcohol and cannabis division, very, very much so compliance driven. So there's a lot of work behind it. But you know what, it doesn't mean that I don't love it. I love what I do, and this is why I'm here today. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wonderful, thank you so much. I have another question, which again, I will ask you, Priya, first.
Okay.
If you have a piece of advice to give to students here today who are heading into the HR and management workforce, what would that piece of advice be?
Like I mentioned before, going with an open mind. Always push yourself, because if you don't push yourself, no one else is going to. We often, you know, at times when we're growing in our career, we think, you know, can I do it? Can I not do it? But you know what? You can probably do it. Put your mind to it, you know, make the right networks, because when you have the right networks, you will guide each other. They are going to be your kind of lifeline. So, you know, on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you can call your lifeline. Likewise, in your HR network, they are your lifelines. Bounce ideas off of your friends. I've got peers and benefits, you know, managers and benefits. I've got managers and, you know, the RSP programs. I've got managers and other areas where I say, hey, listen, I'm in a situation. Can you help me and give me some guidance in terms of what would you do? So it's all about building those networks, whether that you're young in your career or whether you're, well set in your career. Your networks help you and you help them at the end of the day, right? It goes both ways. So as a new grad going into a career of HR management or anything management, or any other field, I would just say, have confidence in yourself, because it all starts with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And Nick, do you have any pieces of practical advice to give to students?
Yeah, the one that comes to my mind immediately is that I remember when I first got started, and of course, when you start, you're typically not a supervisor, right? You're in a coordinator position, generalist position, you're an individual contributor. And, you've got leaders that will come to you with people issues. And I found myself sitting there going like, this is crazy. Like, they bring a problem to me and they say, oh, my employee is, I need your help. My employee is not doing what they're supposed to do. And, some of the advice you give them, it just seems so obvious. Like, have you talked to them? Oh, you haven't talked to them. Okay, well, first off, let's talk to the employee. They don't know that you're disappointed in their performance. And you walk away thinking like, oh my God, why, and you have the insight probably of everyone's salary. So this person's getting paid twice as much as you, and they didn't think to talk to the employee about this issue, right? So I found myself in my early parts of my career going like, they should pay me twice as much. I could do that. I'm better than them, or and you may lose your humbleness. You may realize that you start to think foolishly that you're better than everyone else. And then you become a leader yourself and you're responsible for people. And then you realize the nuances and the challenges of people responsibilities. And you find yourself in the same situation like, oh my God, what is wrong? Why aren't they doing what I've asked them to do? Because I haven't talked to them about it. And you're in the same situation. So in hindsight, I reflect back on my early part of my career and I pass judgment on way too many people. And I now realize the difficulty that it is. It's easy, textbook, to sit back and in hindsight say, here are the mistakes you made. but what led up to it, you can't fault anyone. It can happen to anyone. So just be humble, I guess, and realize that if you haven't done it yet, it can be very difficult.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And Chris, what about yourself? Any pieces of advice you can give to students?
I'm going to go out slightly more philosophical and just say, I think, what I see the most with people starting off in their career, if there's one piece of advice, it's so important to kind of trust your instincts and how you're feeling. I think, your work is such a big part of your life. Sorry, I muted myself with my wrist. You spend, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You spend more time with people you work with than, other people that you care about in your life. So I think if you're in a job or in a workplace where, you're not feeling happy, if you're feeling high levels of stress, you notice your personality is changing and people are saying you're not the same you used to be, if you dread coming to work, if you spend all day Sunday feeling anxious, that means that it's probably not worth it. It's probably time to make a change, reevaluate things. I feel sometimes people hang on to a bad situation for too long out of fear of failure or being perceived as a quitter or whatever it is. But, if you're trusting those instincts, it's something, I had to do once in my career. I had a job that I just could tell I wasn't happy in, and I made that decision to just, leave. And it was probably the best decision I could have made for myself and my family. So that's my more kind of holistic. Caitlin, I noticed Dr. Yu is kind of asking if we could deal with a couple of the questions in the chat if we have time as well.
That is absolutely what I was about to do. So thank you. I think what I will do is I will just ask them all, and feel free to interject whenever. I won't pick on any one person. So the first question we have from a student is, how soon before graduating should we start actively applying for work?
I would definitely say, it's never too early. It's never too late. If you know you're going to be approaching graduation, let's say in April is the last month of the semester, I would say, give it 2-3 months, start getting feelers out there, start networking, start talking to people, because again, it takes time. Typically in a recruitment cycle, once we post a job, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for us to fill a job. And when I say filling a job, that's a matter of going through hundreds of resumes at times. So again, if you're graduating in April, May, I would probably say, if you're targeting starting work around June, July, whatever that may be, start looking out around January, February, start talking to people, start looking at what you're interested in, and really understanding what direction you want to go in.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to have their input in here?
I would just say it's a bit situation dependent, hearing 4 to 6 weeks to like fill a position, that's
being aggressive. That's being aggressive, Chris.
But
our target, my target on my dashboards is 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. No, if you're applying for, maybe the federal or provincial government, maybe keep in mind that sometimes those timelines can be a little bit longer. So to, Priya's point, it's really never too early, but also keep in mind, are you planning on moving across the country? That's going to probably impact your availability and sort of when you should start applying as well.
Absolutely.
And Nick, do you have anything to add to that, or should we go to our next question here?
I would just echo their comments. Yeah, let's move on.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. That's actually something that I've been thinking a lot about as I am going to be finishing my contract. It's a student position. So I have already started applying about a month ago, and I'll be finished I'll be looking in for January. So it's nice to hear that it's good to go early as well. And so the next question from a student is, this is what it says. I want to ask a question to the respected guests that while studying, did they ever feel that they were missing out on life?
I don't know how to, I'll try and dive into that one. I think it's all about balance, right? Of course you have to study, but you have to live too. And if you're not living, then I think one thing will negatively impact the other. You're studying, you'll be wasting time, you'll be staring at a book or your screen, and you're not necessarily processing it. I mean, this is applicable in the workplace, right? If you say, oh, I'm so busy, I'm just going to sit here and I'm not going to move for 8 hours, you're going to have some seriously unproductive time during those 8 hours. You need to freshen your eyes, do something different, go to the water cooler and talk to some staff, and goof. Even like this doesn't touch the question at all, but I just want to touch on employees. Students might think that goofing around at work is a bad thing, but it's actually good. That's where some of the best ideas come from, and the best rapport opportunities. So I would just say you've got your balance wrong if you feel like you're missing out on life, and you've got to reset it.
Wonderful, thank you. That is great advice. Would anyone else like to add into that about work-life balance while in university?
I agree with Nick. It's all about balance. And to be honest, if it's something you're passionate about, it's an exciting time in life to think, hey, listen, like, I'm educating myself to get somewhere where I've envisioned myself to be. So maybe reset your priorities, maybe look at your schedule. Maybe it means that you just need to better organize, because sometimes we're not the best at organizing our time, whether it's in our career, whether it's during education. So I truly do believe that I was not in a situation where I thought that I was missing out on life. I indulged, I took part, I traveled, I studied, I did everything I wanted to do, and I am where I am today.
Wonderful, thank you. And Chris, do you have anything to add to that as well?
I mean, same boat. I probably had a bit too much of a zest for life when I was in my undergraduate, but I do think, again, to go back to what I said earlier, it's great to have an understanding of your, how you're doing as a person. It might be that you need to, readjust some of your kind of priorities. It might need that you need to find new ways, to be effective in your studies. It might be that you're not in the program that's right for you, or, you might be feeling these pressures and stresses because there's something else going on in your life where you need, there's never any harm in reaching out for support. I know the Mount and other universities have really great counseling programs for people who, I think anyone who's feeling like they're not getting the most out of their life or out of the university experience, check the things that you can do from a practical perspective, but also be introspective about it as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And we just got another question, so maybe this will be our last one since we're about to run out of time, but it's from an international student, and they're wondering how to volunteer their services. And do you have any advice on finding the right place to volunteer with, perhaps?
I can answer for us, the association, because we have endless volunteer opportunities, and I'll tell you, no surprise to anyone, I'm sure, listening in, the pandemic has helped us figure out how to do that remotely. So a lot of our volunteer opportunities are done remotely, some in person, but the vast majority are over the phone or Teams meetings, and just lending your knowledge and expertise into those meetings it can be done anywhere.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, you're on a university campus. There's so many societies and clubs and other opportunities to volunteer on campus. If you're an international student, maybe there's opportunities to kind of share what you've learned about sort of integrating into a new country by volunteering through ISANs. So find the things that are closest to you and you have the most connection with, but you're in a position where there's lots of opportunities.
Wonderful. And Priya, do you have anything to add to that, or just reflecting what the other panelists have said?
I would agree with both Chris and Nick. Yeah, nothing to add.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's actually something, what you all said about volunteering and how that's important has been something that's been reflected in all of our career panels as well. So even for students who are not in HR, it sounds like a lot of professionals are saying that looking at resumes, looking at how the wide range of interests and experience that you have is really crucial. So thank you. Thank you all for saying that. We are running out of time, but I would love to hear some final messages or thoughts from our panelists that they could tell our students. Is there anything that you would like to say? Any final words?
Who do you want to go first?
How about you, Nick?
Okay, sure.
You volunteered.
Yeah, I mean, my position, of course, I'm going to give like a general HR is fantastic answer. And so that's my message. I think an HR field is a very rewarding one. Now more than ever, it used to be the personnel department. It used to be the paper pushers and the policy police. And now more than ever, businesses have maxed out how much they can get out of finance, how much they can get out of marketing, but there's still some seriously untapped bandwidth in their personnel, their staff. And so HR is a true business partner now, and it continues to be. And as they continue to research and try to figure out like what can be automated, what careers will no longer exist in the future because of AI and computers and all of that, HR continues to be the one that needs to be completed by human beings. And so I just want to close out with an HR field is a very rewarding and a very important role in every organization now and into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful, thank you. Any other final words from our panelists?
Just to remember, people are the foundation of every business or every organization. So like Nick said, HR is an essential factor of any organization. As we automate, as we evolve, as technology evolves, you always need that people side. So remember, your people are your success behind your business.
Yeah, I mean, thanks to Nick and Priya for saying that. I think that's something it's the existential kind of crisis of working in HR, sometimes feeling like, you're almost embarrassed to say that you work in HR, but the reality is that it's a challenging, rewarding, and kind of critical occupation that anyone who's thinking about should feel really great about the prospects of it. I think to kind of like distill the conversation today, which has covered a lot, into those kind of one or two takeaway points. For me, it's really thinking about what you want out of your career in terms of the values of an organization, how they align with yours, the sector and area that you like to work, and that kind of questions around specialization versus kind of being a generalist, and how you kind of build a career that kind of shapes where you want to go. So yeah, that's all I would say.
And just one thing that I did want to add to that is that in HR, there are some times where you have to make some really difficult decisions where management comes to you to say, hey, we need to do something. This individual's not working out. And what I mean by that difficult decision is that maybe you have to do a reorg, you have to manage a reorganization, you have to manage a termination or whatnot. But you as an HR professional, if you can look in the mirror and say, I've done everything I can to help this manager out and to help this individual out to reach success, you've done everything you can. So yes, we are in a difficult situation. We are dealing with difficult people on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, when we look in the mirror and say, what, I did everything I could, it is rewarding in a way to say, I'm helping in any way, shape, or form I can. I'm adding value to people's lives. I'm putting happiness on people's lives. I'm giving them an opportunity to step into the field and obtain gainful employment. It's a great feeling at the end of the day.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And on behalf of Mount St. Vincent University Department of Business and Tourism, we would like to thank everyone today. We would like to thank today's panelists as well for being part of our Fall 2021 Career Week. Connecting students with industry professionals is really a win-win for everyone, and the real life experiences you bring to the students are an integral part of their education and future success. So thank you again for taking the time to be here. Thank you all of the students who are here, all the classrooms that are here as well. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.